You think casseroles were just casseroles? Think again. Some of these dishes never appeared in a restaurant, never showed up in a cookbook that anyone bought in a store. They existed in exactly one place: the folding tables of a church fellowship hall, somewhere between the Sunday sermon and the parking lot. If you grew up going to church potlucks in America, you already know the rules. Everyone brought a dish. Everyone had a signature. And if you showed up with something store-bought, you knew people noticed. These recipes were not written down in most families. They lived in someone's hands, someone's memory, someone's Tupperware container with a piece of masking tape and a name written in marker so it would find its way home. Today, we are counting down 10 dishes that define the church potluck in America, dishes that most people under 50 have never even heard of, and dishes that, if you are watching this right now, probably bring back the smell of a fellowship hall you have not thought about in decades. Number 1, funeral potatoes. Yes, that is really what they were called. A casserole of shredded hash browns, sour cream, cheddar cheese, and a can of cream soup, all baked together under a crown of crushed cornflakes or crackers, fried in butter until golden. The name came from its most common appearance, the meal after a funeral, when the church women brought food to the grieving family because nobody should have to cook on the worst day of their life. But funeral potatoes were not only for funerals. They showed up at every potluck, every homecoming, every Wednesday night supper. It was rich, it was heavy, and it was made to feed a crowd without anyone going home hungry. Somewhere along the way, as churches shrank and fellowship halls emptied out, the dish faded with them. Ask anyone under 40 what funeral potatoes are, and you will get a blank stare. Ask anyone who grew up in a small town church and watch their whole face change. Number 2, 7-layer salad. This one was not really a salad. It was an event. Built in a clear glass bowl so everyone could see the layers before a single bite was taken, it started with shredded lettuce, then peas, then chopped celery and onion, then a thick layer of mayonnaise spread all the way to the edges like frosting on a cake, then a blanket of shredded cheddar, and finally, crumbled bacon on top. It was built the night before so the layers could set, and it was carried into the fellowship hall like a trophy. Nobody ate it quickly. You savored it layer by layer, the way you were supposed to. Today, the 7-layer salad barely survives outside of a handful of family recipe boxes, and most people who see it in an old church cookbook have no idea it was once the most requested dish at every potluck table in the country. Number 3, Watergate salad. Named, believe it or not, after the political scandal of the 1970s, this fluffy green dish combined pistachio pudding mix, crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, and whipped topping into something that looked more like dessert than salad, and yet it sat right next to the green beans on the potluck table without anyone questioning it. Some churches called it pistachio fluff. Others just called it that green stuff, and everyone knew exactly what you meant. It required no oven, no stove, just a bowl and a spoon, which made it a favorite for women juggling 3 other dishes at once. As boxed pudding mixes fell out of fashion and modern palates moved away from that particular kind of sweetness, Watergate salad slipped quietly off the table, and today most Americans under 40 have never even heard its name. Number 4, green bean casserole, the church version. You have probably had green bean casserole at Thanksgiving, but the church potluck version was different. It was made in bulk, in the biggest baking dish the kitchen owned, sometimes doubled or tripled to feed 200 people after a Sunday service. Green beans, cream of mushroom soup, and French fried onions on top, baked until bubbling at the edges. The dish was cheap, it traveled well, and it did not spoil sitting out on a table for 2 hours while people caught up with each other after the sermon. For decades, no fellowship hall potluck was complete without at least 3 or 4 versions of this dish sitting side by side. Each woman convinced her recipe was the best. Today, as churches consolidate and potlucks become smaller and less frequent, that friendly rivalry over whose green bean casserole reigned supreme has mostly disappeared along with it. Number 5, ambrosia salad. A bowl of mandarin oranges, shredded coconut, mini marshmallows, and whipped cream or sour cream, sometimes with maraschino cherries scattered on top like little jewels. Ambrosia salad got its name from Greek mythology, the food of the gods, and in a church basement in the 1950s and 60s, it genuinely felt like something special. It required almost no cooking, which made it a favorite for the older women in the congregation who still wanted to contribute but no longer wanted to spend all day in the kitchen. Children loved it because it tasted like dessert but was served in the same bowl as the potato salad, which felt like getting away with something. As fresh fruit became available year-round and canned fruit lost its novelty, ambrosia salad slowly disappeared from the rotation, and today it survives mostly as a nostalgic memory triggered by the smell of canned mandarin oranges. Number 6, chicken and rice casserole. This was the dish the pastor's wife made, or the one that every new mother in the congregation received wrapped in foil on her doorstep after coming home from the hospital. Shredded chicken, white rice, cream of chicken soup, and a can of mixed vegetables, baked together and often topped with crushed crackers for a little bit of crunch. It was gentle, it was filling, and it required almost no skill, which meant everyone in the church could make it, and nobody ever felt embarrassed bringing it. For generations, this dish quietly fed sick neighbors, grieving families, new parents, and hungry congregations after Sunday service. It never made headlines. It never needed to. It simply showed up again and again whenever someone needed to be taken care of, and that quiet reliability is exactly why so many people who grew up with it still remember the taste decades later. Number 7, baked beans with bacon and brown sugar. Every church potluck had a bean pot, usually one of the men's contributions, since baked beans felt like one of the few dishes a husband was allowed to bring without anyone questioning his cooking credentials. Navy beans, slow baked for hours with bacon, brown sugar, and a splash of ketchup or molasses until the sauce turned thick and dark and clung to every bean. It was sweet, it was smoky, and it disappeared fast, especially at the tables where children were sitting. As backyard barbecues shifted toward grilling and quicker sides, this slow-baked version, the one that needed all afternoon in the oven, became harder to find, replaced by the canned version most people buy today without a second thought. Number 8, banana pudding. In the American South especially, no church supper ended without a dish of banana pudding making its way down the dessert table. Layers of vanilla wafers, sliced bananas, and a rich vanilla custard, topped with either whipped cream or a baked meringue that had to come out of the oven just right, golden brown but not burned. Everyone had an opinion about whether the wafers should be soft or should still have a bit of bite left in them, and that debate alone could take up half of a Sunday afternoon conversation. Banana pudding was the dish that told you the meal was over, that it was time to slow down, sit back, and enjoy the company a little longer before everyone packed up their dishes and went home. Number 9, congealed cranberry salad. Built in a ring mold and turned out onto a plate lined with lettuce leaves, this dish combined cranberry sauce, gelatin, crushed pineapple, and sometimes chopped walnuts or celery into something that jiggled when you carried it and held its shape when you sliced it. It looked festive, almost like a centerpiece, which is exactly why it became a fixture at holiday potlucks and church suppers throughout the fall and winter months. The dish required patience, since it had to set in the refrigerator overnight, and more than one church supper was thrown into quiet crisis when the salad refused to release cleanly from its mold. As gelatin salads fell out of fashion nationwide, this dish went with them, and today it survives mostly in the memory of anyone who watched their grandmother run a knife around the edge of that mold, praying it would come out in one piece. Number 10. The hot dish. In the upper Midwest, they simply called it hot dish. No other name needed. A casserole built from ground beef, canned vegetables, a starch like tater tots or egg noodles, and a can of cream soup, baked until bubbling and browned on top. Every family had their own version, and at church potlucks across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas, tables would be lined with a dozen different hot dishes, each one slightly different. Each cook quietly convinced theirs was the one people would remember. It was the ultimate expression of making something out of very little, feeding a crowd on a Tuesday night supper or after a funeral, without anyone going hungry and without anyone spending more than they could afford. As grocery habits changed and fewer families gathered in church basements on a weekly basis, the hot dish became less of a weekly ritual and more of a holiday memory, the kind of dish people only make now when they are trying to recreate a feeling from their childhood. So there they are, 10 dishes that never needed a restaurant, never needed a cookbook, and never needed anyone's approval but the congregation sitting around those folding tables. They were built by hand, carried in casserole dishes wrapped in dish towels to keep them warm, and served with a spoon that had probably fed 3 generations of the same family. If you grew up with even one of these dishes on your table, you already know there was nothing fancy about them, and that was exactly the point. Which one did your family make? Which one do you wish you still had the recipe for? Tell us in the comments, because somewhere out there, someone else is remembering the exact same dish, and they would love to know they are not the only one. And if this brought back a memory you had not thought about in years, stick around, because we have more forgotten American traditions waiting for you right after this.